Jeremy Weiss here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders. Today is no different. I have Ed O'Keefe, and you can check him out at edokeefelive.com. And Ed, before I formally introduce you, I always like to point out other episodes people should check out of the podcast. And these are people you know well, actually. Ed, Todd Brown. Check his episode out. The founder of the E5 method, considered one of the top authorities. The two people I was following early on, Ed, way back when, was you and Todd Brown. Todd Brown was marketing to chiropractors, and you were doing marketing to dentists back in the day.
I didn't know Todd was in that market. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, way back when. Maybe he doesn't even remember. It's been so long. But check his interview out. Caleb O'Dowd is one of the top direct response marketers, and he's worked shoulder to shoulder with the late Gary Halbert. Just one of the geniuses I've seen in direct response. I know you know Caleb well. Joel Irway, founder of the webinar agency. That's a great episode. And Roland Frazier, who Ed's done work with, and Ron Popeil, who unfortunately passed away, but is considered the infomercial king. And this is going to relate to exactly what Ed's going to talk about, because not everyone can be Ron Popeil. They need a Ron Popeil, actually, right? And we're going to talk about Ed's Wingman offer, okay? Before we do, this episode is brought to you by Rise 25, and at Rise 25, we help businesses give to and connect to their Dream 100 relationships. And how do we do that? We actually run your podcast. We're an easy button for a company to launch and run a podcast. We do the full strategy, accountability, and the full execution. Ed, we call ourselves the magic elves that work in the background to make it look easy for the host and the company. And for me, the number one thing in my life is relationships. And I'm always looking at ways to give to my best relationships. And I found no better way over the past decade to profile the people and companies I most admire and share with the world what they're working on. So if you thought about podcasting, you should. If you have questions, go to rise25.com. And there's not many people I've had on 3 times on my podcast. Ed is one of the only few people. I highly respect Ed on so many levels. And Ed O'Keefe is a father of 7. He grew up in a household of 13 children. Whenever I think I want to give up or things too hard, I think of Ed. I'm like, I have no excuse, 0 excuse in my life. He wrote the book Time Collapsing: The New Art of Speed, Money, Power, and Meaning. He's used time collapsing methods to leap to the top of several industries. He started multiple companies from scratch to multiple 7 and 8 figures. In dentistry, he sold over $50 million in marketing systems and seminars. He started a supplement company, sold over $60 million in health supplements. And like I said, on top of all that, he has 7 kids running businesses. He did Kokoro Camp, which is a 51-hour mini hell week created by Mark Divine. And I was like, I got psyched up, and I was looking at what it was. And then I saw some of the most in shape, toughest people say it's the hardest thing they've done. I'm like, okay, maybe I'm not cut out for it. But Ed, thanks for joining me.
Dude, you're making me blush over here. Great to be here. And I think I'm going to actually add some more customers to Rise 25 today, because we're going to be talking about why they should be being interviewed in a very structured way, but also, very great group of people you mentioned prior. I mean, what an amazing group of people. I think the one topic we're going to talk about a lot today is the idea of like the offer Wingman, and I think all those guys are some just geniuses at structuring offers. And I think that to start out, if the big thing on any business, whether it's multiple 8 figures, multiple 7, is it all comes back down to how do you get that first sale, right? And how do you structure an offer in such an unbelievable way? My best offer was definitely to my wife when I think it was over chocolate martinis, which started out the beginning of the 7 kids. So
people don't believe me, Ed. People don't believe me. So I'm like, really? Come on. He's 7 kids, and like, here it is, right here.
It's true. True. Yeah, that's true. There's my Julia right in the middle. She's pretty amazing. They all are. They're all really amazing, differently, beautifully perfect, so.
Here's the Time Collapsing book. You can check it out. But talk about the offer Wingman and how you stumbled on it.
Yeah, I mean, to dive right in, I mean, I think the one thing is that I've always been really good at, first of all, I've always been really curious about people. So I enjoy like selling Jeremy Weiss way more than I enjoy selling Ed O'Keefe, you know, like just naturally, right? I mean, it just feels better. It's easier for me to see what's going on with somebody's offer. And the quick story behind it was, you know, a few years ago, I get a phone call. A guy wants to spend a day with me. Super successful dental consultant, like runs a mastermind, big coaching club, selling $65,000 packages. And I was really, really busy at the time running the supplement brand and the health category of our business. So I took on I wasn't really doing coaching or consulting as like a model. But long story short was he comes to the house, spends a day with me, great guy, love him to death, 73 years old. But one of the things that happens a lot of times in coaching clubs or in masterminds or in any business or memberships is that the owner or the expert, they're in the fishbowl, right? Like they're so used to the water that they don't even see like what's going on around them. And it's like the old phrase of, you know, it's hard to read the label when you're inside the jar. It's hard to see the forest through the trees. Like I can give analogy after analogy. And so with my, you know, 27 years of experience of just launching offers, and as we all know, like an offer that goes to multiple seven figures usually starts by losing literally, I like to say 9 out of 10 times. No, you're usually losing, it could be a year. It could be like, I remember when Marine D3 took off, I was 14, 16 months into it. And I can point out like the different people who gave me different pieces of wisdom that allowed me to create some breakthroughs. And same thing as when I was in dentistry. Actually, there was a trick I learned in dentistry, which I could talk about in a moment. But it's very easy for me to see, like when I was talking to Dr. Bill, I just looked at all his marketing and I was like, dude, I love you. Like I see what's unique about you, but your marketing team is totally missing what I see about you. And I didn't crap on his marketing team. That was what was going through my head. I was like, they'll never get what I'm trying to, the advice I'm giving you. So I was like, why don't I just interview you? Right. And then, so as you know, being an interview guy is like, I interviewed him, but I interviewed in a structured way that brought out the story, brought out every objection that a prospect would have. And I was prepared to clobber every objection if he couldn't. Right? Like, oh, this is expensive, right? And $65,000. I was like, yeah, but if I was this is my setup on that. And we're going to talk about how to actually do webinars and a few other, because Offer Wingman has like 4 components to it. So I just want everyone to know before we go into like telling about how I did an interview, it's not just an interview. Like the concept is that if they are not asking to be in your coaching club or mastermind or membership before you sell it, then your context and your setup is not doing the job, if that makes sense. It's like when they talk about Ron Popeil, and Ron Popeil was famous for doing the infomercials with the knives on TV, right? So people wanted the knives because of the demonstration of the genius, which the genius was the knives, not the wingman. Okay, it's very important to understand that. Like the wingman is almost supposed to be non-important, but super important, right? Like John Paxson passing to Michael Jordan to beat the Cleveland, Cleveland Cavaliers. Sorry for all you Cleveland people. I know the rest of the world has forgotten about you as well. It's okay. It's okay. But I'm a Chicago guy, so we got to send us to Vinny Fisher as well. We got to get him on this tech.
I was going to say, Vinny won't be too happy about that.
But there's only so many objections that people have when they look at your offer, right? There's only so many objections. But it's your job as the offer owner or as the entrepreneur, the chief revenue officer of your business to not only clobber the objections, but clobber them in multiple different ways and at multiple different times, okay? So for Dr. Bill, for example, $65,000 sounds like a lot of money, except if he's helping you get one full arch case a month because he taught your team 5 questions that they can start implementing tomorrow. Now you're doing an extra $25,000, $35,000, $45,000 a month minimum with 1 or 2 patients. And your investment's only 65K, divide that by 12. What are we looking at there, right? We're really only looking at an extra 7,000 a month if I'm doing, no, not that's totally, it's not even that expensive. It's like, you know, 5,800 a month or whatever that number was. That is like the price of one implant. See where I'm going with that? And so the same way people would break that stuff down into like, oh, it's just a cup of coffee a day. Well, if you're selling really premium price stuff, you know, you gotta, you know, how is a Lamborghini expensive? Well, not when it's right next to a Boeing 7, you know, 47, right? Right? You know, it's not, it's just not, right? And so my job always was, is if the most people, first of all, aren't phenomenal at doing that, and even the best ones, like Roland Fraser is really, really good at selling. Does it put his selling abilities on steroids when he's got somebody who's serving up the objections, letting him clobber it, and then adding on to, you know, another way of looking at that, you know? So like, that's really powerful. And so it depends on, like, I've worked with experts that are really great on, like, the great offers. They're really good. They're the most fun to work with because we're just now finding more money and helping more people and impacting more people. And then with people that are really struggling, I can come alongside them and be like, just do your expert stuff, and then I'll structure it all for you. And then when it comes time to do the opening and the close, which are some of the most important things, as long as they don't overeducate, which I know you were going to ask me about, like, what are some of the biggest mistakes people make? But then I could just do the pitch for them. And again, now I'm going to pause for a second. I'm going to tell everyone this, right? There's only so many objections, right? You got fear, uncertainty, and doubts. That's what they have. But it's going to be time, identity. Identity is so important to make sure we have them visualizing in the future. And you can't say visualize in the future. We got to take them out in the future, right? Time. Like, that's why I said, like, there's 5 questions we can add in your office tomorrow that your team can start using within 24 hours, because they're asking, how fast can I get the result? When I started working with those guys, and frankly, I don't monitor their sales calls. So they might still be doing this, but they'd be like, well, it's going to take us 3 months and 4 months and 6 months. And I'm like, can't we just take the most profitable thing that you have in your business and give it to them today? Like, literally, the moment they sign up, we're going to do a fast start call. It's installed in their business, and boom, they get a quick result. Because now the rest of the program's absolutely free. The money goes away, right? And so, I mean, I can talk about this stuff all day, Jerry. I get really excited about it. You know, in dentistry, for example, I work with a lot of professionals. I worked in dentistry for 13 years. And one of the things that I would ask is, like, would you actually build a business, a practice that was designed to bring you price-driven patients? Like, really, like dental implant, you're trying to design a business that brings you only cost-driven and price-driven patients. Now, for all those coaches and experts and clients out there, or service people like that are finding they're dealing with money objections too much, I can ask you the same question, right? And the one thing I'd say is that can you hear me, Jeremy? Okay, somehow some clicked around. The only thing I say is, like, well, then you went out, you spent $500,000 on a building, you went and got this really expensive implant machine, you went and hired all this team members, so it's probably costing you a couple of million out of the gate. Yet the amount of attention and focus you put on pre-educating patients using this type of content is zero. Yet you're complaining about dealing with cost-driven people. And so one of the first things I like doing is looking at people is, like, how are we obliterating all these objections before they ever get to the call to action? And then there's other things there. Then how are we, you know, I can go through this whole thing with you, but I'll stop right there. But I want to get the Jay Abraham would call it the predominance thing, whatever. Well, the reason that happens is because you create authority and perceived credibility through education that identifies all the wrong ways they're doing it that's costing them what they are hoping for. So you are now a solution to all their inadequacy and all their emotional issues. And the reason why they don't feel confident to brag, or like when they see their kids or their wife, That's how we have to look at some of this stuff. And so that's kind of like, that's some of the stuff I do, you know, and make price disappear completely.
So when you mention the objections, Ed, would you include price, money in it? So we have fear, doubt, time, identity, and money? Or
Well,
are
yeah,
you
fear and doubt,
saying money shouldn't
fear
be
and
an
doubt.
objection if you position it properly?
No, you have to talk. Well, you have to talk about money. I mean, like
Yeah.
it's gonna cost them something, right? So there's usually there's like a handful of things, right? There's time. Like, do I have the time to do it, and how long is it going to be till I get the result, right? There's reputation and identity, right? Which is what am I escaping that I'm running from? And usually people in almost everything they failed at it before they've been a failure before. Whether it's weight loss, the number one objection with why am I not doing this weight loss or fitness thing is because I failed at the 35 other ones that I've done. So why is this different? We have to address that. Like, you know, Amazon, if I'm trying to become an Amazon seller, right? Well, you've probably tried other business opportunity things to make an extra 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 before, and it hasn't worked. And wow, you know, like it's the whole let them off the hook thing. It's not your fault. It's the same thing in dental marketing. It's the same thing in podcasting. Like, well, you've tried podcasts before, but you've never really gained traction. Well, how have you tried to do it before? Well, I hired the VA by myself. I sucked at all these different components, and then I got really, really busy. Well, which part did you hate the most? Well, I hated uploading it and then editing it. It's like, okay, well, or you could just hire Jeremy's team, and what if we took that off your plate? Would you still want to do podcasts? The answer is, well, yeah, of course I would. So you got to go through like you failed in the past. You don't want to be a failure again. And what is it going to look like when this is all over working together? And we have many ways of doing that, right? You get them quick wins in your pre-education. So they feel like, wow, I got a small win, right? Number two is you get case studies that they can identify with. So when I look at everybody's testimonials, either A, they're not using specific enough testimonials that is directly obliterating the top objections in sequence. Okay. And then does not also cover, and I learned this when I used to do NLP and hypnosis. The thing is that if I said, hey, there was a former chiropractor who ran a podcast company who had an issue with, and this never worked for him. Well, now you know I'm talking about you. Well, you want people to relate to your testimonials and your case studies, but you need to use a range of different people, you know, whether it's the new person all the way to the ideal client. And yeah, those are really important things to obliterate and move off the table.
I want to hear about you mentioned 4 components and how the offer Wingman works, but you were doing this even in your dentistry days with Wendy, right? So
well, we were, yeah. So like here's what was funny. So I didn't really plan on having a business around coming alongside experts or business owners and helping them craft their offer and then being their pitch man or being their like their post pitch, because we have a thing I'll talk about in a minute called unannounced bonus method that helps take fence tippers and get them to buy. But all of this kind of started making sense to me when I was like, Ed, this is what you're naturally been born to do. Like, I'm one of 13 kids. I'm the 12th of 13 kids. I love talking. I like coaching people. I've coached volleyball for 26 years. My team just finished 3rd in the country. My son just won the Catholic League Conference for golf. I mean, there's winning. I like being involved in the winning part. And coaching people up and then helping people win. And I'll tell you just a quick side, I'll talk about winning in a second, but everybody listening, like the number one job when we're trying to impact your prospect is not to educate them. The number one job is to give them a shift in perception so they make it in their mind. It becomes so obvious that they should be working with you. And you don't do that by over-educating. And most experts that come to me, Jeremy, are over-educating. And I can tell you, Wendy was doing this when I first met her. So when I look back on my life, I was like, wow, every business I launched, I did it the same ways. We would create an offer. I would take you know, the audience, which is a really profitable audience. I want us to get back to choosing the market and how to up-level your market. Because if you have a better offer, guess what you get to do? You get to charge more and you get to go after better clients. So we'll get to that in a minute. But with Wendy was a hygienist in doing consulting in dentistry. And I was the marketing guy. I was the new patient guy. And she had come to one of my conferences. I said, well, cool. It's so great to meet you. You know, she was great. I'm like, told me what she did. She'd helped one of my clients. She had a story. She had solutions. And I had a case study. See what I had there? I had 3 elements, right? There's a story about her journey, a case study that she helped, because now we can amplify that and build an offer around it. And her problem was she didn't know how to do one-to-many selling. Like she was a one-to-one consultant. And I had an audience. So I said, like, why don't you come on up? Let's sell them something. You know, that's what we do. We're in the business of making money together. And we just created a new coaching club, you know? And so I interviewed her. We did a teleseminar and a webinar, and then just started promoting her to my audience. And really quickly, man, that was the most profitable business. I had 2 most profitable back-end businesses that anybody here can replicate. It's like, if you have your core business, you're generating leads, you're generating customers, you're generating clients, you know, what else can you add on to the back end that solves another problem for your client that doesn't rely on you, that if you added it would be 80% net profit? And then since I'm selfish, I'll say, like, well, then let's go find an expert. Let me help interview them, and let me help create the pitch, and then we'll offer it to your audience. Like, it's like, wow, guess what? That's how all the 9-figure businesses do it. Like, you look at Agora, they get one offer working, and what do? They build another publishing enterprise behind it. They do another one and another one. High ticket offers, run them up, and it's unbelievable. Like, that's the model, right? So with Wendy, that was great. We did it with another guy in our market. I'll keep his name out of it. I called him Mr. X, and he was a big internet marketer. And dentists wanted another way to add extra income. And I didn't realize this. This is interesting, Jeremy. I didn't realize how much professionals that are in an office all day want extra income, like really, really want to retire. And I mean, that, you know, I did the same sequence we do with everybody. You know, I interviewed them. We ran a content beforehand. We crafted an offer, right? And we built up all this demand, and then we launched it. We had it open for 4 days. It did $1.7 million in a really small amount, small audience of people. Our price points were, I believe, $25,000, $35,000, and $100,000. And you know, again, what's the formula there? You have to have something that people want to buy, and then you got to stick it in front of them. And you know, the offer has to be sexy and attractive enough so that when people look at it, they really feel like a moron by not saying yes, or it's so good they do whatever it takes to get into it. And we've all done that, right?
With the Wingman, again, you've been doing this for all those years, and back then you didn't really identify this is a Wingman offer, right? You've learned that, and once you realize that consciously, you can really hone in on it and make it even better. So what have you realized? What is the Wingman offer that you were doing with Wendy and Mr. X and all throughout?
I think it's really just helping. I think it's really helping a business owner, like with these experts specifically. It's really taking the pressure off their shoulders to not have to feel like they're selling, and just stay present and then follow a structure. And so that structure obviously is, we're not here to educate them so much that they have all these notes that they walk away from here and don't do anything, right? It's really why, like, Russell Brunson's whole like 3 steps, and Jason Flavin's one of the best webinar guys I've studied. Myron Golden's another genius. And what started happening, the Wingman concept came because when I was in dentistry, every time I ran a live event, I hired a Wingman. You know, like in looking back on it, this is just so clear. It's like, Tim Paulson was Joe Polish's Wingman in his plumbing business. And Tim Paulson would sell, and so for everyone understands, like, what's a Wingman? A Wingman is designed there to help sell more of your high ticket services or more of your product in a way that edifies the expert. It creates a third-party endorsement of the effort or the expert. It allows the expert to just be the expert and the offer to be the offer. And then it allows me or the wingman to be the person who sells harder on the audience, who has permission to be tougher on the audience, who has permission to, you know, pull every single arrow out of the quiver. But here's what's really funny about that. The audience, and so it could be over Zoom or it could be in a whatever, appreciates it more because they want to buy. They just want to, they got to have the emotional, and most times they feel emotional and they're just not clicking it over logical. And then that's why you got to destroy all the objections. And then it takes a little bit of expertise to do that properly. And then even like that, watching this now, like Jeremy, I told you, like one of the things that the biggest misconception is like, well, I don't really need a wingman. Our sales are really good. Like I old friend of mine who was in my mastermind years ago was like, well, sales are good. I just need help with marketing. I'm like, well, what do you think? What do you think I'm talking about here? You know, because if you could bump up your average cost or average lifetime value or average value immediately and get increases of conversion rate by an extra, let's pretend I barely help you at all, 5%, 10%. If you're selling a $5,000 package, that's an increase of $500 per the same amount of cost. Okay, now what if we do it by 50,000 and you get a 10% bump? That's 5,000 extra every time somebody comes through. Now, if you're running that through your system a lot, well, that starts to add up very, very quickly. Okay, you could spend a lot more money if you were making more like for every 1,000 you were spending. If instead of making 3,000, you were making 6,000, would you just pocket all that money, or would you go get more customers and accelerate your, you know, your bottom line profit? So there's a lot you can do by adding new components. Now, I spent $50,000, brought Tim Paulson in. Tim did a setup pitch for me. He did a panel for me. It was much better when I was running my events to have somebody like Tim Paulson, who was a third-party person, talk about how great Ed O'Keefe was than it was for me. And trust me, I've done it without Wingman, and you just sound more pitchy. I hired James Malinchop twice, who James is amazing, to do the same thing. One year I hired Bill Rancic to do the same thing. So I've always been cognizant of like, your job is to help me, is that I needed help, even though I was good, quote unquote, at delivering my offer and making an offer to the audience.
What other, so that's an objection, right? It's like, I already have good sales, right? It's all fine, right? What's another objection that you tend to get?
Well, the good sales thing is the other thing that's I see a lot of, especially the mastermind and coaching club guys that are reaching out right now, is like, there's just seeing a plateau right now and it's like decline. And so what I would say is that there's life cycles in masterminds, there's life cycles in coaching clubs, there's life cycles in businesses. And so if you don't have new front end offers happening all the time, or new angles, like let's just say it's 99% the same thing, but we're able to have a different voice. Like even the voice could be as simple as we change it to being like, hey, everybody, it's Ed O'Keefe, and today I'm here with Jeremy Weiss. Now, Jeremy has packed more rooms, you know, due to with his pot, you know, like just that one little hook can open up a floodgate of new people. Because if you've been in a market long enough, you're going to see a law of diminishing return on your same ads going over and over and over again. That's number one. Number two is, wait, what was your question again, Jeremy? Because I don't want to go down too big of a tangent.
No, keep going. It was just objections. Any objections that you're getting? Obviously, one is, you know,
or like people don't think it's further, like this isn't relevant to me, or you're just going to sell me something. It's like, well, no, your webinar is working, but are you running a unannounced bonus 2 days after the webinar? Which is an unannounced bonus. Just a method is a little bit. I took a little bit of this from Travis Sagel because he doesn't use video with it, but like the whole idea is you need to have a cleanup campaign. And what's a cleanup campaign? Well, they've gone through your webinar, right? You've now given them a 24, 48-hour expiration timeline. Now, what if you sent out an email that was like, hey, I have great news. My friend Ed O'Keefe, author of Time Collapsing, has agreed to do a free webinar or free training on the 5 outside the box ways to grow your X. It could be anything that you're doing. It could be personal development, it could be business. As long as I can modify my time collapsing, whether it's business development, cash flow, profit, mindset, modeling, any of those things, I can talk about anything and fit into the box. But what we do is we take, I got a handful of bonuses of like events I've created. I would talk to the expert and be like, what are the biggest objections that they're having? This is the number one tip I can give everybody. What is the number one objection that you're dealing with? And can we create a bonus that is 10 times the value of what you're asking them to invest in your thing? So if it's $25,000 a year, what is a $250,000 bonus that we can give them, perceived value? And then let me do the pitch. And so what we do it is we disguise it. And so I have my whole pitch down on this, and it's like, hey, I heard Jeremy, I'll pretend like you're my guy, Jeremy. Jeremy made an offer to you guys yesterday. And out of the 100 of you that's on this training about how to grow your personal brand with your podcast, I heard that there's 41 of you who did not say yes. So for those who are in, congratulations. I have free gifts for you, which I'm going to tell you about right now. And for the 41 of you that haven't jumped in yet, I'm going to have, here's a little bribe. I'm going to invest in you, because I know when you invest in yourself by investing in Jeremy, I know it's a lot of investment going on, but I want you to invest in yourself, because here's 3 reasons. Number one, I know that people who pay and invest in themselves pay attention and are emotionally committed to getting an outcome. So if you came to this training today because you want to grow your business and your personal brand, but you're intellectually committed, but you're not emotionally committed, because all you do is go on free trainings for the rest of your life. You go to YouTube and YouTube and YouTube. Jeremy's seen you on all his trainings, and you're just one of those freebie people, and you're wondering why you're not getting the outcome, is because you haven't committed to finding a model, a mentor, and duplicate and replicate the results that they're willing to give you. And Jeremy's giving you an offer that's worth, $20,000, $30,000, and he's asking $1,500 for it. I mean, this is crazy, right? So let me talk to you for a moment, and then I go through like the bonuses. I'm going to give you this, and I'll give you this, and then I stack the deck. And here's the coolest thing, Jared. Like, everyone got to understand. Like, when I say to people, I'm hard on people, I'm not hard on people. I expect a lot out of people, because people need. When is the best you've ever done in your entire life? The best you've ever done in your life, there's usually 3 things that happen. 1, you made an emotional commitment to get the result. Whether it was because you were fed up and you were broke, whether your back was against the wall, whether it was you were trying to prove someone wrong in high school and college, like, I'm going to show those idiots who I really am, and I'm going to go be successful. I'm going to study, like 24/7, or maybe you grew up broke and you're like, I'm not going to be like, I'm going to change my generational lineage, right? Whatever that might have been for you, or, but you made an emotional commitment at that thing, right? And the second thing you did is you found a model, period, end of discussion, a model and a mentor. There's always a model and there's always a coach. And the 4th element that I hammer home which is more important today than ever before, is the idea that you need to have a crew of people that you are getting better with. Iron sharpens iron. It comes from Game of Thrones, when she says to the sister, do you remember what Father used to tell us? That in the winter, the lone wolf dies, but the pack survives, and the pack thrives. And right now you're trying to be a lone wolf. And I'm just telling you from personal experience, because I've had some successes. I've had a lot of failures. In my failures, I've always tried to do things on my own. And I've always tried to hide from it, where you need to come out in the open, get a mentor, get a model, And so I'd like to invest in you. I'd like to actually, encourage you that if you're this far, if you're intellectually here committed today, you're emotionally committed today, you're looking for permission. And then I could have a couple of emotional stories in there too, that builds that trust, rapport, that gets that call to action. And then I'll put another 24-hour bonus or a time limit on it. Like, hey, you got 4 bonuses, but these 2 expire at midnight tonight. So that's after the webinar, Jared. Now, before the webinar, that's where you throw in either a mastermind talk, which is more about the, Napoleon Hill. It could be a little more light, oh, everybody, this is how we're going to do it. Like, this is what people who are successful have in common. A little bit lighter, right? And then I would also put the interview out there as well, and before they get it, there was a really smart guy who runs a call center. I'm forgetting his name. Is it Randall Grizzle?
I don't know that one.
He's talking about they were on a phone center and they sell high ticket for people, and they were saying how what happens from the time of sale to the phone call is critical in the success of the phone call being successful to upgrade people. And so what I always like tell people, and cut me off, I'm talking too much. I don't mean to talk too much, but you got me going here, is I'm now that I've bought, I'm looking for validation that my decision was good, right? And that, again, I got to get my identity pumped up. Like, this is going to be successful. Here's why you're going to be successful. Here's why it was a great decision. And that's where like an interview can come into play either before or after a webinar, or both, could be using cold media as well.
And you have had Brian Tracy on your stage before talking about this very thing about when you look at success, and you've said this before, you look at the people that they're surrounded with, really.
Well, yeah. So Tracy, and that Brian Tracy, and in fact, I've hired him 3 different times. Two of them were one-on-one consulting, and then one for my team, because I just fell in love with him that much. But he likes to state a Harvard study that talks about how that the #1 indicator of success, and this goes to your audience right now, like if you don't have a mentor, if you're not working with somebody on your offers, your growth of your business, you're trying to do it on your own, I bet you're doing a great job. I mean, I really do. I bet you're doing a great job, especially if you listen to this podcast. If you're following Rise 25, baby, you can't not be doing amazing. But no, really, but it's your peer group. Like the direct correlation is who you spend the most amount of time with. Peer group. If because no matter what anyone says, Jeremy, like you're rattling off like how much we sold in supplements or how much we did. When I tried selling my dental business, I made every mistake in the book. Like I've made every embarrassing mistake, right? Like every single one of them. So I'm at a nice point in life where when I come work with a client, I don't want them hiding anything from me, because I'm like, look, I've already made all the mistakes, bro. Like in personal, financial, like let's just get it out. Let me help you. Let me come beside you. And so, and Brian Tracy was a great mentor of mine. Dan Kennedy was one of my first mentors as well. He was phenomenal on stage. I hired Joel Bauer. Joel Bauer came to the house, then helped map out one of my PowerPoint slides back when I was in dentistry. So I'm the product of investing in myself too. And I know you're looking at the time, so I want to make sure I'm respectful of it. So.
No, I was looking for, Joel has the can, right?
Joel Bauer. He's the magician. He's
the magician.
Probably one of the best salespeople of all time. You don't even know what the hell. You don't even know what the hell you're buying half the time, Joel Bauer. I mean, he'll look right at you and be like, "You're the most sexy and attractive man alive. Get to the back of the room and put your credit card down." And people like stand up and they run in the back of the room and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so entranced by this guy. He's very, very good." Michael Burnoff's another great guy. There's a lot of great people out there. I mean, yeah, there's so many good people. I'm learning every.
I mentioned before you did some work with Roland Frazier.
Yeah, Roland. So Roland and I have been friends for a really long time. Our first actual thing we did, actually, this is so funny we're mentioning it. We did a $25,000 package weekend for dentists back in the day when Roland was working with a local SEO like franchise thing, and how to work out. I interviewed him. Put him in front of my audience. Then I pinged him after the interview. I pinged him with a offer. Hey, Roland and I are doing a weekend. So that was one of the first times we started making money together. And then about 2 years ago, I did another component of Offer Wingman, but I didn't realize, just so everyone understands, I didn't really realize how to like connect all these dots and that it was this important, because I was like, hey, after your challenge, what are you doing with all the buyers that don't upgrade? See, everybody does like, oh, they sell their $7,500 or $9,000 or $15,000 and $25,000 coaching. And then they just like stop, they just put them in like the what would you call it? The mass mailing, the broadcast email. And I was like, well, give me those 1,200 bodies, or those names that bought like the $55 thing, and let me see if I can upgrade them. Well, so I sent him a direct mail piece, 1-page letter, learned that from Travis. brought them into my email inbox. What did I do? I created a little video, brought the offer together, mashed it up, and then we sold off of a list of 1,200 people. It cost me about $1,300 to get in the mail. And then we did over $70,000 in less than 4 weeks. Okay. Then Roland said to me, he's like, well, hey, why don't we, he's like, yeah, I got this thing over here called Consulting for Equity. And I came to his event, was helping out, tried to help one of his not his partner, but like a client of his out by speaking on a stage and helping orchestrate his event for him. And help him sell his mastermind. So Jeremy, when I look back on it, all these like pieces were coming together of me doing this because I'm good at that. Like, I'm just good at it. I'm like, I know how to run an event, know how to run a room, know how to run emotional states in the room, keep people's attention and set the sale up. And then we launched Consulting for Equity. And what did we do? We created a webinar, a sales letter, an offer, and we did an interview. And then we took some of these pieces together, launched it to the list. And I believe in the first 4 weeks that did over $500,000. And he, Deanna and the crew over there, I mean, they've taken that thing to, you know, multiple 7 figures. I think it was over 7 figures in the first 90 days. Pretty incredible stuff. So,
wow.
Yeah.
And who's ideal to reach out to you?
Ideally, it'd be somebody who's running. So, I mean, there's 2 different categories, right? You're running leads to your mastermind, your webinar, or you're trying to fill your coaching club, fill up your membership, and you have a high ticket of 5,000 or above. If you have something under that, after we do an offer makeover, we're going to be selling something over 5,000. Because people that go in for $2,500, there's always another offer layer that you could be selling for 6,000. Maybe the timelines get longer, but there's a percentage of your market space that will always pay more than you're currently charging. Like even with Dr. Bill, you know, 65,000, he was charging 58,000 before I started working with him. After they hired me, I went on a commission structure based on the funnel I built for them. So he just raised his prices to pay for me. Right. And so that's one of the added values that I bring. But the like we have a guy in the legal space that sells 4,000 a month mastermind program. And so again, he's been in the market for over 10 years, frustrated because it just seems like he's been around. So, you know, sales plateaued a little bit, needs a fresh insight, new voice. And for me, it was, again, super easy for me to look at it and be like, I could see exactly why things are plateauing. And it was very easy for me. In dentistry, we have somebody in the implant space, but I'm trying to structure this so I could take up to 2 people in each market and make sure they're not competing against each other. And so 5,000, 15,000, 25,000, 35,000, any of those kind of things. If you want to win quick, you're ideally generating leads, or you have traffic and referrals coming to you so that I could bolt on an unannounced bonus method, like literally within 24 hours, and we can make money together. If you need a full offer makeover, you may or may not be a good fit. So they could always just hire me to do an offer makeover, which is an hour consultation. I review the offer, review the assets. Yeah, I think brand new people that are just starting out, they might be able to hire me for an offer makeover consultation or some advice, but that's not the ideal client for Offer Wingman. Offer Wingman is definitely for people that have been in the market for a while. They want to supercharge their sales, plateaued, backsliding sales, or sales are going well, and they want to supercharge it. The last category there might be if you have a budget and you have money and you're willing to, this is what you're committed to, then we could build out a webinar together, and I can grow that for you. I can help you grow that. But you just got to make sure you realize that when you're starting new offers, it's the hardest spot in the business. And so what I always like to look at is like, how many case studies do we have? We only need one good one, but it's got to be one. if you're just trying to make up stuff, you're like looking for like, you know, Ed, I don't really know what my offer is, then it really just requires a lot more effort, time, and money. And so you could reach out, but I would say probably a consultation is the best way to go on that one.
Ed, first of all, thank you. How should people reach out? Where should they find you? I know that people can check out, like I mentioned, EdO'KeefeLive.com. Is there another way that people can reach out?
Yeah, I mean, so the best way, so you go to EdO'KeefeLive.com. There should be a opportunity there to either watch a free training on how to optimize your offer, or apply for Offer Wingman, or apply for our offer makeover, where I'll review it all for you. The other option is, and you can email me at Eddie, EDDIE, at EdO'KeefeLive.com. That's Eddie at EdO'KeefeLive.com. Put in the subject line Offer Wingman, or just send a text message, 312-607-6799, and then just type in Offer Wingman. And then we'll ask you some questions. Make sure you get directed in the right way. And yeah, I mean, you know, you know me, Jeremy. So like, I just want to share with everybody right now, like, here's the deal. You will walk away with some insight. If we end up not working together, you will walk away with some insight that will help you either tweak your positioning in the market space, identify the right market, or clarify your offer. Because if you are getting sales right now and you know something's not exactly where it needs to be, there's no question in my mind I can help you supercharge that with my eyes closed, because I've made every mistake already. Not because of my genius, but because of my ability to get my ass kicked over 20-something years and keep learning from brighter minds than myself, you know. Oh, Ron, you know who else is a badass that I just have to mention because he's been a great mentor of mine? I mean, Travis Sago is one of them. Ron Lynch, talk about pitchmen. He has written so many infomercials from behind the scenes. So he doesn't really have any trainings. He's got his marketing mercenary training. He releases once a year. But if you want to follow somebody, he's an amazing guy.
And I just want to say,
never do what I just did, which is, I just did my call to action, and then change channels.
You're too good of a wingman. You want to be the Offer Wingman, but let me just say, like, I've been following you for over 15 years and following your you're one of the smartest direct response marketers, business people. And I've been following your copy. I remember I was at the Brian Kurtz Titans event. And Ed, you won't remember this, but I remember you sat right.
He's another genius. Brian Kurtz is another genius. I mean, you know, Jerry, I mean, keep going. I mean, because you're bragging about me, but yeah. I just feel like I'm, you know, I've been lucky enough to be thrown into this environment where this category of like this, my parents didn't have this type of business. We weren't able to create podcasts. We weren't able to do all this stuff. I mean, my dad did real hard work, you know. But go ahead, man.
No, I was just going to say, I was at it was, you know, the Titans event, amazing speakers, amazing people in attendance. And Ed sits right next to me. We're both from Chicago. He didn't know who I was. I had been following what he does, his copy and his businesses for years. So I knew exactly who you were, and we chatted. And, you know, I've gone to your conferences, your events. I listened to you yesterday for 3 hours on YouTube because you're, you know, like you said, anyone who talks to you, you are a giver and you just learn from you. So I appreciate you sharing with the world your gift, and everyone check out EdO'KeefeLive.com to learn more. So thanks, everyone.
You're the best, buddy. Thank you.